Welcome to How to Learn a Language. I'm glad you're watching because today I will tell you my routine that I use to give a big boost to my listening skills and also to my vocabulary. What do you need for this? You need some time. Make some time every day. I do it before I go to sleep. I take half an hour, sit on my bed to do this routine. And you also need audio that has the transcription with it. Of course, you can use the text from your study book, but you can also use something that's a little more fun. For example, the graded readers, they have little books for many languages, they have it in your level. So A1, A2, B1, B2, etc. And many of them have actually a CD with it. Or, as you can see at this one, it has the online audio, right? So look for something that has text and audio. Yeah. First thing you do is you listen without reading. So you just listen. After that, second step, you listen again and then you read along in your book. Right? So you hear and you see. So that's when you get the link between the letters and the sounds, or the words and the sounds. So you relate that to each other. It's also good for learning to pronunciate it well. Third step is select the vocabulary that you didn't know. Right? So the new vocabulary. If you select vocabulary, for example, with a verb, I would recommend to do it together with its preposition if it has a fixed preposition, or for some languages it might be good to learn a noun together with its article. You can even take short sentences. So you select not too much. For myself, I choose to just select like 6 items, so words or phrases per page or per article, and then I look it up and I write it down in my vocabulary list. I will tell you later which options you have for that. And then the last step is listen to it again without reading. Okay? So you can check whether or not you understand it now that you know all the words, now that you have seen it already. If you listen now, did it improve compared to the first listening? And usually it does. Okay? Then of course, if you want to be able to understand people, you need to know a lot of words. Because if you speak, you choose your own words, so you only use words that you know. Right? So that is easy, let's say. And if you read, you have all the time in the world to look it up. To look up in the dictionary what it means, or to ask someone. So you have lots of time. When listening, you don't have the time and you don't get to choose the words. So that means you need to have a very big vocabulary. You can study vocabulary in many ways. I like to just write down lists in a little notebook with the word on the left and the translation on the right, and then every now and then I test myself. I repeat same list. It's very important to repeat over time. But you can also use applications like Anki. It's very good for the spaced repetition, or Memrise, which works with associations and mnemonic techniques to remember. Or the one that I use at the moment is Quizlet. is pretty fancy. It has a lot of options. What I like about that one is that when you make a list, actually it gives you automatically the audio with it. So when you practice, you can turn on the audio. And that is good for listening again, because then you don't only know how the word is written, but you also know how it sounds. Because if you learn vocabulary, if you learn a word, it actually has 2 characteristics, right? How it's written and how it sounds. So you need to learn both. For listening especially, it's good to have a way of learning vocabulary with the pronunciation. And in this case, the audio of Quizlet works very well. Of course, what you also can do, if you make your own flashcards or post-its, or if you have your own notebook, you use the gold list method. I also recommend to look that up. For vocabulary, you can also, of course, write between brackets the pronunciation or some hints so you will know how it's pronounced. So that would be another option. What I do after my listening routine and selecting the words, putting them in a new list, is study one of my old lists. Okay? At the moment I recommend, or I use the frequency. So on day 1 I make the list. Above my list or in a notebook I write the name of my Quizlet list, and then I write down the date of when I made the list, and then I want to wait at least 2 days before I test myself again. I test myself, I put stars to the difficult ones, then I test the difficult ones until I know them all, and then I write down again the date of the moment, the first revision. And then I want to have at least 7 days in between, and after that at least 2 weeks. After those last 2 weeks interval between learning sessions, that's like the 3rd learning session, and then if there's still a few words that I really don't know, I put them in a new list and I throw away, or I don't think anymore about the old list. I would just consider that they are in my long-term memory. So that's how I go about it at the moment. Of course, if you want to boost your listening skills, this is not the only thing you could do. There is a lot of things you can do. For example, you can listen to podcasts, you can listen to the radio. Songs could also be an option. Television, series, Netflix, YouTube videos. Listening is also included in speaking. So if you speak to someone who talks a lot, if you have a neighbor that speaks talks a lot, then you can listen to her, for example. There's lots of things you can do, and of course the more you do of it, the better. What I like about this method, and of course you can combine, is that you can, for example, do 1 chapter a day, and you can actually see. So if you didn't understand, you can go back to the text and see why is this that you didn't understand it. So for example, I didn't know the word, or I thought it was 1 word, but it seems that it's actually written as 2 words, or they actually only pronounce half of the word. Like with French, that's often the case. They leave out the last few letters. So then you can actually see why it is that you don't understand what they said. So that's why I really recommend a method in which you have the text and the audio. So you start with just listening, then listening and reading, then you look up the difficult words, and then you do again only listening, right? And of course don't forget to study the vocabulary that you have selected, or the chunks, the sentences, whatever it is. All right. It's not only with reading books that you can do this. There, you could also download an audiobook, of which you also have the book. There are a lot of options. There are also, for example, I know for Dutch, there is a YouTube series in which they put the subtitles in Dutch and even in English. I also like to work with bilingual books, and then on top of that the audio, so you don't even have to look into the dictionary, but then you can just look on the English or whatever other languages is that you are good at the other version, and then you have already your answer, so that's also a good option. But look for something with a transcription. If you have a lesson book, for example, here I have a lesson book, it also has texts in it, of course. Every lesson starts with a text. With the audio, even the listening exercises have a transcription at the back of the book. So look into the lesson materials that are available for your lessons. If you don't know, maybe you can look up a Facebook group with teachers or learners of this language, and you can ask who knows something that you can use for this. Okay, I wish you good luck. I hope your listening skills will improve big time. Try to follow the routine that you have chosen to do as long for as long as you want per day, for example, half an hour, 5 days a week, for example, and then try to put yourself a deadline. For example, I want to do this for 1 month, and then you can actually check if you did it every day. Good luck, and if you have questions, please leave them below. If you like it, give it a like, and of course subscribe to How to Learn a Language. Have fun and see you next time.